Well, welcome aboard this special episode of Wild Goose Adventures. You may have noticed that I've been doing a lot of foiling of late, and that has led to a whole heap of questions which really fed back into my decision and my lack of decision about how to get into it and not knowing what to use, what equipment that I should be getting, and how all of this operates. So I thought we might just split this down and do some little series, and we're going to start first up with the board. Now, the first theory that I want to introduce you to is the idea of volume. When you talk and you say, I want a board, people will talk, first thing they'll ask you is, well, how many litres do you want? And that refers to the volume of the board. And the general theory is your weight plus around 30 kilograms. So I'm around 100 kilos, and this is my board, and it's around 130 kilos. And what that means is that it gives you enough flotation to be able to get on it, to kneel on it, to stand on it when it's unsupported, and still be able to keep you afloat. Well, stop right there. Hold the phone. What on earth was I thinking? From here on in, I'm talking about litres, not kilograms. A board doesn't weigh 135 kilograms. It measures in volume 135 litres. So from here on in and the rest of this video, please forgive me, I'm talking about litres rather than kilograms. You'll find that as people get better, they get smaller boards, and then you'll see them sort of up to their knees and swimming around trying to get going. As a beginner, when you get into this, you don't want that. You want a board that will keep you out of the water and give you enough flotation. So just remember, your weight plus about 30 kilos, and that will do you fine. The second part of the equation is the length of board. So depending on what you want to do, this is where it might vary a little bit. But the length of the board is critical if you are doing different aspects. So for example, you might have noticed I do a lot of sup foiling. And so with a sup foil, you want something a little bit longer. And this board is around 7'6", so it gives me plenty of length so that I can stand on it, and that when it's just in the water, it gives me stability, and I can paddle it, and then I can paddle onto waves, and it gets me going. That's the theory, and it's worked very, very well for me. So stick on that. If you're looking at doing some supping, if you're looking at doing some wing foiling, you can use this board and you can teach people, and it is awesome. I've been using this for the whole time since I started, and it has been fantastic. If however you are looking at mainly doing the wing foiling and using a wing, you don't need to have this length board. You still need the volume and the literage, but you don't need it to be as long. So I just want to take this little opportunity to thank Board Sports down in Caloundra, because they've lent me a couple of boards so that I can give you a comparison about what you may or may not need. The link will be up here, and it'll be in the description below, and let them give you advice. They're the people I badger with questions all the time as well. But if you're looking for a smaller board because you're looking at wing foiling, you really don't need the length. And they'll talk about a couple of key terms that they'll use is swing weight and just weight in general. And so when I talk about that, you'll see this board has 100 litres, so it's not that much less, but 100 litres volume, but it's only 5'5". It's really small. And what that means is that once you're up on the foil, then they talk about swing weight, because if you've got length in here and weight up here, then it's much harder to control that elevation and to sail in a straight line. And then also when you're turning and when you want to move it from one way or the other, then you're not having to move this big bus around. And that is one of the things I find about this, that when I'm winging and I'm up and going quickly, that there is a lot of volume in this and a lot of weight that I'm having to push around. Now again, being 100 kilos, it's not too bad, but they're already badgering me and they're starting to suggest that I use something a little bit smaller. But I really like this, and I've been doing this now for just on 12 months, and that's still my choice board. I don't have any others, so it does me perfectly for both. The other thing that I really like about these new boards as you come on is that, as you can see, they've got room for foot straps, which makes it really easy for pumping. And also, if, again, I'm not anywhere near here either, but if you want to start doing aerials and doing 360s and really cool stuff, then that's really handy. The other part that I think is a must, and as things have developed, then certainly this has become fantastic. The handle that you use on this board is that you carry it is in the center and on the top. What they've been starting to do is they've understood that on these boards you actually don't carry the board from the front, and in fact once it's got the wing you're trying to keep the sail well away from it. So they've started putting the handle underneath where you can just hold it. The sail, the foil will be out here, and you can hold the sail here, and then you're in no danger of getting it trapped and getting the sail torn by the foil itself. So just look out for this. Fantastic. While I've got this here, you'll see that part of what we were talking about, swing weight, here, this is where the foil attaches, and you can see that there's not much room. It's right at the back there. It's got the little step so that as you're pushing to go up, you're not trying to sink a whole lot of board in the water, which makes it much easier to get up and actually go sailing. So here is the board. I'm going to turn it over. Your foot position, you've got nice little heel pad here, and then your foot goes, just let me get a little bit higher, but the foot, your front foot goes near the front. There's no swing weight, as opposed to my board, which you can see by where the foil sits. There's a lot of volume behind my foot, and then when you can see, my front foot normally is about here, and you'll see that there's all of that weight. So there you go, the ideas of the board and what to look for in the board. Your weight plus 30 kilos, and then what you might be wanting to use it for. The last thing that I want to talk about is leashes. So when I very first started, I've used a leash that went around my ankle. Then I switched from there and went to the leg rope that attached to my thigh. Now the thigh was better than the ankle, and it certainly lifted out of the water, but either I've got really spindly legs, or what kept on happening, as you'll see in the videos here, I'll just show you a few clips just here. What would happen is that I'd get out and it would fall down and slide down off my thigh around my ankle, and now suddenly I've got a strap that is big enough to be around my thigh, around my ankle, and when I fall off, and you will fall off a lot, trust me, then you'll lose the board, and then what happens, it gets up on the foil and sails away, and it's a long swim afterwards. So my answer to that is to get this leash, and this leash wraps around my waist. Excuse me, excuse the noise. But as you can see, it just straps around here, so it can't fall down. My hips are big enough to hold this on, believe it or not. It's nice and just sits high, so it doesn't drag in the water, and it has been my little godsend, and I haven't had any troubles having to readjust it while I'm out in the water. It just sits there happily. So if I just recap, you want a board with a volume of about 30 kilos more than your body weight. You want to decide the length of the board is going to determine what you want to do with it. Quite often, if you want to just sup, that's fine, but if you're looking at just using the wing, then I would go to this smaller board. And it is actually easier to learn to foil on a wing. You've got something to hang on to and you've got balance. And thirdly, and lastly, use a strap. It really wraps around your waist. It's much better, and something that I would definitely recommend. So there you go, the first episode of my Wild Goose Adventures. Learn to foil, learn to sail, on a wing episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget, if you'd liked it, hit that like button, leave a comment below and find out, just ask me if you've got anything else that you want to add to what I've said. And in the meantime, get out there and have fun and smooth sailing.